All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here recording on the Tuesday evening, September 5th, for our September 6th episode, Wednesday, episode number 94. And the wait is over. We're here. It's fantasy football time. You're gonna be listening to this Wednesday night or Wednesday, I guess, throughout the day. And literally one day from when this pod drops, the NFL season is starting, and I could not be happier because, we're going to get into the fantasy aspect of this later, but all of a sudden my Lions win chance went up drastically, and it's even the spread's gone down, the over-under's gone down, the money line's gone down. Chance of the Lions winning still not great, but it's gone up. So, if that's anything, we'll get into the insider headliners after, but I'm really excited for Thursday coming up here right away. So before we get started, throw it over the fellas here, and we'll see. I know we got for those of you listening, we got three really, really tired men on this podcast right now. It's our first day with kids back at school, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all three of us. It's been a long day, but Zach, how was the first day back with the kids in the building?
It was great having everybody back to school. My school, or I guess my classroom, we did it a touch different. We had just the returning students to the program come back, and then tomorrow we have the new students coming, but still pretty tuckered out. So I can only imagine what it was like having a full classroom today for you guys, or I guess more so for Armand than you.
Yeah, Armand, yeah, full go football practice too. I imagine same as Zach, but how was first one back?
It was good. First day is always just handbook, lockers, stuff like that. Getting into the swing of things for the students as well. So, tired, yes, but it wasn't the most tough day at the office, one could say.
I was grinding. Elementary, I was grinding today. It was a long day, started early, finished late, tired, but here we are talking a little fantasy football, and I'm not mad at it. So before we get started here, I know you wanted to talk about I know you had two drafts last night, and we'll get into a little bit of recap of our charity draft in a bit here, but just for those of you at home, Armand timed out on his draft pick and auto-selected twice. So just for you at home, just got to throw that one out there. But Armand, the tough task of live drafting as well as doing the charity draft at the same time. So, I can only imagine how difficult that was. But you wanted to talk about your other draft on a little interesting strategy that happened and get a little feedback, I guess.
Yeah. So a guy in our league will remain nameless, and I just want to point out, I thought it was a fairly interesting draft strategy, and Yahoo ended up giving him a grade of A-, which I did not agree with at all. I was expecting like a D for his draft. He started out well with Jamar Chase and Jalen Hurts. He was in the two slot in a 14 team league. But then in the third, he took Cooper Kupp, who, he's injured right now. Who knows if he's even going to play this year, kind of the way things are going. And then in the fifth, he takes Jonathan Taylor, and he's on the pup. Who knows what's going on with him? And then in the 11th and 12th round, he decides to double and triple down on the Indianapolis backfield and take Zach Moss and Deion Jackson. And there's only 4 bench spots in this league, so he's using up 2 of his bench spots on Colts RBs.
Hey, well, Zach Moss was a terrible pick because I think, didn't he break his forearm or something?
He might have. I don't know.
He's battling a pretty severe arm injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's questionable.
Yeah, the Deion Jackson would make sense, but I'm pretty sure Zach Moss is I think he's still going to miss a couple weeks too, if I'm not mistaken. I could totally be wrong, but
yeah.
But your league too, 8 make playoffs in his 12-team league, correct?
8 make playoffs.
Like Cooper Kupp in the third is really good value in a 12-team league, and would you say in the fifth was Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah.
Like me and Zach, we had this exact conversation yesterday. Like, how far do you let JT go until it's worth the gamble? And in the fifth, I think that's incredible value.
Yeah, I think he rightfully so probably deserves that A minus. Um, like, yeah, that's really good value, I think,
Well, even
for
Cooper
both
Kupp
those
in the
guys.
third too, like is risk, but that's huge value. Like if he missed 2 weeks, he's not on the pup. So like really he could miss 1 week, he missed two. I think he's gonna miss 2 to 3 weeks. But even still, he can come back and still be the wide receiver number one after he comes back and misses that time. So
Mhm.
like in that league, and I know who you're talking about too, like it's high risk, high reward, and that's kind of how he rolls. But even if he comes out first 4 weeks, if he comes out 2-2, like he's laughing. If he
Yeah, if
comes out
he's
0
able
and
to make it through the first few weeks here.
if he
But
goes 0 and
that
4,
was the
then he's
thing
in
is
big trouble.
two of his top five guys are high risk guys, and that's what was interesting there is he's taking those high risk guys and two of them.
Well, look at our draft, Armand, like the one you commissioned. I gave up
Yeah.
3 of my top 5 picks, and my team still looks not bad. But
Yeah.
like I don't get those 3 of 5 picks back mid-season where he's gonna get those 2 picks back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I don't know what the rest of his team looks like, but if he can manage, even a 1-3 isn't great, but not terrible. 0-4, that's just I guess what happens when you burn the picks. But if he can come out 2-2, like I think he's gonna be in a real good spot to make a good playoff push. But
Well, here's his whole team, round by round: Chase, Hurts, Kupp, Kittle, Taylor, Moore, Sky Moore, Bateman, Mostert, Zay Flowers. Oh yeah, he also doubled down on 2 Baltimore receivers: Marvin Mims, Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, New Orleans, and Brandon McManus.
that's a
For
good
me,
team.
with the exception of Zach Moss, I think that's an awfully good 14 team.
Like really Bateman. Like I don't think OBJ is gonna be the one, but Bateman and Zay Flowers, one of those are gonna be the one, I think. So you're guaranteed the number one wide receiver in Baltimore on a team that's been pushing the envelope that they're going to pass an immense amount more than they did the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Zach. The Zach Moss pick is terrible. That's a terrible pick. But even he got your favorite defense. He got the New Orleans Saints, which is like whatever. Defense is a defense, but like I don't know. I think that's a really good draft. Like he's got Chase, who's as safe as you can get,
Yeah.
and then he's got Mostert, who's high upside, but battling a little bit of injury now. Like, oh man, I think that's a really good draft.
Well, his starting receivers or starting running backs week 1 are going to be Mostert and Deion Jackson.
But he's also got Jalen Hurts,
Yeah.
who could be the quarterback one by a substantial margin this week. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really good draft, and I won't tell him to that face. He has to listen to the pod to get the praise because everybody know, well, not everybody, but we know who we're talking about here. But yeah, like Hurts might absolutely crush the Pats this weekend. Zach, sorry, but it's a real possibility.
I not talking about the Pats and the Eagles there, but I'd be shocked if there were many teams in that league that I like more than that one long term.
Especially if you look at it from week 4 on. Like that's a super team.
Yeah,
It could blow up quick, but I mean, like after week 4, I don't know. I'm sorry, Armin, you're in tough come week 5. Hopefully, you play him in the first 4 weeks.
Let's see. I'll let you know in 2 seconds here.
Yeah. While he's queuing that up here, we'll get a couple things going here. So just so you guys know, this episode we're prepping for week 1. Usually we recap the week, just so everybody knows how the episodes from here on out move for the rest of the year. But usually we'll have a quick question of the week, which we will this episode. Then we'll recap the previous week, and then we dive into a little bit of the upcoming week and some of the things that we everything you should know, or players you should target, players you should sit, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a wager aspect to last year. Lucas was on the podcast. He threw out a couple different bets he was sprinkling out throughout the week. This one, we're going to try and have a little more fun. We're going to try and do like a parlay of the week, which is like, for those of you at home, you got to hit every bet on the wager to win. And usually if you hit them all, you win big. So a little bit of a fun one. Not super likely you're going to hit it every time. Even if you hit it 50% of the time, that's pretty good. But a fun way to try and win some money for you at home. So that's kind of what we got on the docket today. But Armin, do you see him in the first 4 weeks?
Week 6.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're screwed. You're screwed. You're screwed for sure. You're gonna get dunked on.
Nah,
Unless like
Kupp
when's
Cup and
actually, hey,
Taylor are out.
hey, Jalen Hurts is bye week 6, isn't it?
No, it's week 9, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, you're dunked on. Sorry. Okay,
Oh, hey.
quick question of the week here. This one we did last year, and I went back and looked at some of the names. Man, we were pretty spot on for the most part with our names from last year, but this one is following the conclusion of week 1 and as we progress into the waiver wire, which for those of you listening, our social medias is going to push out like our top waiver wire ads of the week before the waivers roll out. Just when our episode drops, it's not feasible, but on our social medias, we're going to put it out there for you guys, just so we know, so you know who we're targeting, et cetera, et cetera. But for this one is after week 1, who do you think is going to be somebody that's going to be one of the main waiver wire ads following week 1? And Zach, let's go with yours first, because I put the question out there, and usually what I'll do is I'll kind of wait to see. I have a few names in my head, but this was my like number one. And I was like, if anybody's going to pick, I'm sure it's Zach, because we were talking about it the other day. But Zach, who's your number one waiver wire ad following the week 1?
You're gonna give me a inflated ego here. Holy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So I was surprised when I opened the docket and you hadn't put this guy in there, because like you said, you and I have talked about him a little bit here and there. And that's Van Jefferson. Currently the presumptive number 1 wide receiver on the Rams offense. Right now he is owned in 38% of leagues on Sleeper, so just over a third. And another honorable mention would be the other wide receiver right now on the Rams offense that's been getting a lot of hype throughout the preseason. I am going to butcher the poor
Puka
man's
Nakua.
name.
There you go.
Yep, Puka.
I was going to say the same thing. You beat me on both punches, Zach.
The rookie out of BYU. He's been getting a lot of hype here in the last month and a half or so. So if like going forward here, leading up to week 1, I think Van Jefferson would be the better bet to make if he is available, but getting Puka there might not be the worst idea either.
Yeah, we were doing the charity league draft last night, or I guess when the pod drops, it was 2 nights ago. And I was helping one guy out because, long story short, I gave my team up for another guy to be in the charity league. And I told him, with your last pick, you should take Van Jefferson. And he was the second last pick of the draft. And Van Jefferson went, I think, about 10 picks beforehand. So I said, okay, if you're going to take anybody, take this Puka Nakua, or whatever they pronounce his name. But it's a guy that could be a hot priority after the week's over. But before we go to Armand's pick here, I'm just gonna let you know I just saw a report here. I was looking through some of the reports as we're talking, and the one says they're expecting Zach Moss to return by week 2 or week 3, around that timeline. So yeah, you can poke one hole in that guy's draft there, Armand, but that's the only poke you're gonna get. Who's the guy that you're targeting or possibly will be targeting following week 1?
Well, I wrote here kind of tongue in cheek the backup RB of whichever starter gets injured, because that seems to be the way it always goes. But I'm trying to guess a player that might surprise us and already outplay his ADP going off the hop here. The name I wrote down first here is Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's owned in only like 18% of leagues on Sleeper. 19%, sorry. And he has steadily improved every season that he's been a pro. As a rookie, he did 304 yards, 2021, 597, and then last year, 839. So it's good to see that improvement every year. He's still young. He's 24. And people are getting real hype on Elijah Mitchell going over to the Browns. But he's kind of more of a slot guy. Peoples-Jones will be in on those 12 personnel sets and be an every down guy, whereas Elijah Mitchell might not necessarily be out every down. So I'm hoping, and I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones will surprise us in week 1 here, and will hopefully become a legitimate starter in fantasy.
He's a guy that's kind of like a post-hype sleeper, where like he was hyped up big time last year, this time of year, if not during draft season, and then just never came to fruition. So he would be a guy that at least would be on people's radar, like a common name, like he's not like an unheard of guy, like the guy I'm going to mention here in a second. But
my other bonus ones were Gus Edwards, and then either Roshan Johnson or Deontay Foreman, whichever one of those two guys starts to steal the backfield from Herbert first.
Don't you put that? What does Ricky Bobby say?
Bad juju on me or whatever.
Don't you put that bad juju on me, Ricky Bobby? So I got two here. The one is like kind of like a deep sleeper. But the first one, like this wasn't my main one, but a name I want to throw out is Zay Jones, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're taking on Indianapolis, and I'm not sure where that game's gonna go, but Jacksonville has Indy's number. I don't think Jacksonville's lost to Indy in like 7 seasons or some weird number like that. Or maybe it's like at home or at Indianapolis. They haven't, I can't remember what the weird stat is, but we still don't know exactly how that wide receiver room is going to shake out. We don't know how many 3 wide receiver sets, 2 wide receiver sets, 1, we don't know what they're going to do yet. I know like this is going to hurt Armand's ears, but we don't know what Calvin Ridley is going to do yet. We don't know if Calvin Ridley is going to be in one wide receiver sets. We don't know if in 2 wide receiver sets, if it's Calvin Ridley and it is going to be Christian Kirk, or it's Calvin Ridley and it's going to be Zay Jones. We don't really know how this wide receiver room is going to settle out yet. And Zay Jones has been kind of the odd man out, even though he had a pretty decent season last year for Jacksonville. Only roster in 12% of leagues. So that's one name I'm throwing out there. And the second one is Michael Wilson. And he's a rookie wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. And for those of you that aren't Dynasty fans, this guy's getting a ton of buzz coming off like really a bad team. And I'm going to foreshadow a little bit here when we do our starts and sits. I really like Washington's defense because they're going to smoke Arizona. There's a greater than less than chance they start a rookie quarterback. But rookie quarterback, rookie wide receiver, they've had a lot of time, obviously, without Kyler Murray in preseason, in training camp, anything like that, to start getting a little bit of a meld. And I've talked about how much I like Marcus Hollywood Brown, but really it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, okay, we're going to double down on James Conner, load the box, and then we're just going to probably bracket the number 1 wide receiver, which is Hollywood, which is going to leave the secondary wide receiver open for, I don't know if they're going to get a touchdown in that game. I'll be honest. They might get 3 points, maybe get 6 points. I don't know. But I think he's going to be hyper targeted and a guy that's had a ton of praise coming out of the preseason, and he's currently rostered at 0% of leagues. I'm sure there's some leagues out there where he's rostered, but just the percentage of drafts that have happened on Sleeper, there's not enough to even make a 1% roster rate for Michael Wilson. And I think if you look at the box score enough and you see he gets 9 receptions or 8 receptions for 60 yards, it's gonna be enough to people to be interested in picking him up and see what happens moving forward. So that's a deeper cut, but a guy that I think that has some potential to make some noise. And especially if you're playing DFS, that might be a real sneaky free square coming up. Going into our insiders and headliners, just a couple things here. We got Cooper Kupp. This one really, really sucks. He's still in Minnesota, currently seeing a specialist for his hamstring injury. He strained it twice during spring training. So they're trying to figure out exactly what is causing this injury. So they're saying he's day-to-day, but I'm going to say there's no chance he plays week 1. I'm also going to say there's probably a less than chance he plays in week 2. So we talked about him obviously extensively at the start of the episode, but if you're a Cooper Kupp manager, it's not looking great. And I just traded for him in Dynasty and for my super team, I'm down JT and I'm down Cooper Kupp. So not super pumped about either of those. And then talking about
Kelce, aren't you?
I'm also down Travis Kelce currently, apparently, because he hyperextended his knee at practice today, and his availability is up in the air right now against Detroit on Thursday night. So 3 of my top players on my Dynasty team, which I'm currently playing Zach in week 1, are on the shelf. So Zach, congrats on 1-0 season. My undefeated start is not looking great.
Oh, get off it. That team is it's a wagon. Even your backups are solid.
I'm just going to speak in existence, Zach. Hey, congrats on your first win of the year. Some good juju.
All right, put them all. Bench everybody. It's fine. Start Goff.
I actually low-key might.
Start Goff, start Herbert, start Hunt.
Start Hunt. He's going to really put up a lot of yak yards going to the 7-Eleven and back. He's going to give me a lot of points.
Start Williams, start Zach Ertz.
I actually might have to start Zach Ertz. I don't have a tight end. I'm in trouble. I'll probably start Greg Dulcich, I guess. I think I have Dulcich in the league. Anyways, this isn't Jordan's Dynasty talk. We'll actually get some fantasy stuff here. We'll get into the charity draft, actually. Let's do that first. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our actual charity draft, and I'm going to list off all the teams that joined the league this year. So for those of you at home that don't know exactly like kind of how everything shook out, we did a 16-team league, which is like massive. That's huge. And I wish we could have done like where it was it's called a copy league. There's 2 copies of each player. And we could have got into like the 20 leagues or the 24-team leagues, and we could have got like really crazy. But as of right now, Sleeper can't hold that. So 16-team league, real big roster, or real big league. You need to start 1 quarterback, 1 RB, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and the rest are flex. There's also bonus points for big touchdowns. There's bonus points for big reception, stuff like that. Half point PPR for RBs, full point PPR for wide receivers, 1.5 point PPRs for tight ends. So there's some really fun different types of points and settings here for our charity league. And we have in this one, we have Hunter Boyer, Tyler Rock, Joey Carrier, Armand has a team, Zach has a team. I gave my team with just obviously without getting to the whole story, I gave my team up to another guy so he can be in the league. Brady Wildman, Curtis Pfeiffer, Connor Fox, Leland Duker, Robbie Gates, Avery Laguerre, Landon Amoy. We have Tim Stewart, Keenan Holash, Wyatt Lycan, and then our not undefeated, but our reigning champion, Mason Hawks. So that rounds out our 16 teams. Going over the draft, I guess, Armand, maybe you start. You had a tough goal last night, doing 2 drafts at once. I think you timed out 3 times, auto pick twice. Let's go over you. I know right away you were like, okay, Zach first. Let's start with you. Let's throw your joke out there that you put in our group chat, because that like legitimately made me laugh out loud.
Oh geez, I wish I could remember which one you're talking about.
The username trade.
Oh yeah. So Tyler Rock drafting from the 9 seed, started off with Chubb, came back in the second with Olave. Third was Calvin Ridley. Fourth was Fields, and the 5th was Williams. And I think I said something. Oh my goodness. And in the 6th, AJ Dillon. I said it's going to be the first ever username and password swap in fantasy, where they just trade sleeper accounts, and Armand just takes Tyler Rock's account, because I think 1 through 6, like these are all guys that Armand stands to some degree.
The best was like your arm was like, yeah, I hate my team. This is the worst draft ever. And then Zach's like, why don't you trade them usernames and passwords? Propose the trade. Hey, gives them, this is my password, propose trade.
Yeah. No, I can't even deny that. Like, did not fall the way I wanted to. I don't like absolutely looking at my team. I'm like, there's a little regrets, but not a whole lot.
No regrets. Some regrets. No regrets, eh? Not in one letter.
Drafting from the 14 slot, I took Amon St. Brown first round, and I'm pretty happy with that, with full point PPR, and excited for him on my team. It's the only league I have him in. Then I took Mahomes in the 2nd round. 3rd round Breece Hall, 4th round Cam Akers, which I didn't want to be in the position to have to take him. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. And then 5th round Pittman, which was he my first auto pick that I accidentally had?
No, I think you actually took Pittman.
Akers was my auto pick.
Let me pull it up here. As you're talking, I'm gonna pull it up, because I was giggling, I'm not gonna lie to you, because there was one pick that was just horrifically bad. And I know it was an auto pick. That
was the Williams.
Jamal Williams, yeah. That was a bad pick.
So we'll continue on then. Njoku in the 6th, Charbonnet in the 7th, Jamal Williams in the 8th, Justin Ross in the 9th. Decided to go take my guy.
Oh, this one was
the
bad.
draft was going horribly anyways.
The Damian Harris one too. That was an auto pick.
Yeah, Damian Harris is definitely an auto pick. And then DJ Chark at the end of the draft in the 11th. So started out all right and then just kind of went downhill once I got those auto picks going.
You're gonna like some people at home are thinking like, oh my god, like that guy at round whatever. But like, keep in mind, this is a 16-team league, so there was a ton of players off the board. Zach, going over your team here, you were in the 3 spot. So obviously a shocker, Travis Kelce going to 101. So I'm sure you were licking your chops here that McCaffrey landed to you at 103.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I was expecting to draft Kelce. In all of the mocks that I did, I had Kelce fall to me in like all but one of them, I think. So I felt pretty confident. And then starting the draft off with Kelce going off the board, all my pre-planning kind of went out the window, but quite pleased to get McCaffrey. Like you said, it is a 16-team league. And most teams don't have like a clear-cut workhorse at the running back position. So to get one right off the hop, I could not have been happier. And then in the second, I came back and I got Gibbs. This one, I'll put him at flex. It'll be great. Hopefully he's able to contribute. The only downside is that McCaffrey and him share a bye, which is a bit of a bummer that I can't have one subbing for the other during the bye week. But aside from that, I felt pretty good getting these two guys, both starting caliber running backs. Rounds 3 through 5, I just took the best receiver available, Higgins, Watson, and Ayuk. None of those guys I don't think are going to be PPR monsters, but I think they're all young and explosive. Watson, I think, could have himself a bit of a breakout. Ayuk, maybe, I don't know. We'll see though. Then I took Tua, and then after Tua, rounds 7 through 11, most of them were just guys that I really liked. Maybe went a little bit early on some of them, but I got Sky Moore, Elijah Moore, Jalen Warren, Michael Meyer, and Roshan Johnson. My one regret from the draft was the tight end position. They were going early and often in the early rounds of the draft. And before I knew it, some guys had already drafted like 2 or 3 tight ends before I had a chance. Didn't realize we were playing like 12 personnel here on offense with multiple tight ends. So just as the draft kind of unfolded and I kind of like identified that next tier of tight end, they just get, snapped up before they came to me. So finally in like the 10th round, I just took freaking Mike Mayer. So
he was tight end 22 off the board.
Yeah, like stupid. Like some guys had 3 before I had 1, which like, yeah, that's my fault, but I didn't feel comfortable getting, some of these other guys earlier than that. So I can see this being a real pain in my bottom here all season, trying to get the hot tight end off the waiver wire, or odds are probably spending a little bit in a trade to go get some guy that I probably not super happy with.
Taysom Hill's available, just got dropped, I think. So there you go.
I did seriously consider drafting Taysom instead of Mayer.
There's I wouldn't say, well, looking at your team, Zach, actually I like your team quite a bit. There was 1 surprise pick and 2 mistakes that I thought you made. The one mistake was the tight end one. But I mean, like, hindsight, you still got good players. And if you can hit on a tight end late or off the waiver wire, then no harm, no foul. Was your second last pick. You got a tight end. But I was surprised that you went Watson instead of Dotson. That one surprised me. Like there's a 4 pick difference there. So that one surprised me that you ended up going Watson. I thought maybe you're hoping Dotson was going to fall to instead of Ayuk, but I did really like the Ayuk pick. But the one I did tell you about that I thought was a mistake was looking at your draft. There's a quarterback run and you jumped on Tua, and we talked about that you thought if, as long as he can stay on the field, he's a top 10 quarterback, which I totally agree with. But the guys in front of you had Burrow and Jackson already. So you passed on Flowers to take your quarterback, and then Flowers goes on the turn and they ended up settling for Sky Moore. So I thought if you could have taken Zay Flowers there and then got Tua on the way back instead of Sky Moore, I thought, man, that'd have been like, I mean, that's a real small pick at your draft there. But like, I really like your team. There's 2 or 3 teams in the draft where I looked at, I'm like, okay, like I actually really, really like your team. And hindsight too, obviously as a commissioner, there's one thing I wish I would have done differently. And I wish, with being a 16 team league, I wish I'd have done the 3-round reversal, where for those of you at home, instead of a snake draft, it goes 1 all the way around, then 2, and then 3, and it goes all the way to snake. It goes 1, 2, and then once the second round ends, the end of the draft starts the 3rd round. So it just makes those teams that drafted later a little bit stronger because they don't get the top end talent. That's the one regret I think I make as the commish, but I mean, we'll see what happens, because there are some teams actually that did draft late that I think are pretty strong teams as well too. So this is gonna be fun. I forgot to mention too that there are 2 divisions of 8 teams. So top 4 of each division make the playoffs, and then you have to beat your own division to go to the final. So it's gonna be a fun one. Lots of different rules, lots of different draft strategy. It was, like I said, I didn't draft in this one, but I helped a guy that has never drafted before. And I think I was just as busy texting everybody back that was texting me during this draft. Like, our group chat was going crazy. And then there was like 4 or 5 or 6 different teams in our draft that were texting me about their picks or like what was happening in the draft, like kind of like live recapping, kind of like we were doing in our group chat. And like my phone was buzzing the whole time. Like, I don't know if I could have actually drafted. I've been just as distracted as Armand, I think, going through this draft. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, all the money's going to charity, so it's for a great cause, and I'm hoping it's an exciting season for everybody involved. And obviously the winner is going to go home with a signed Jackson Smith and Jigba jersey. And then second, third place, we have some nice prizes from 22 Fresh, as well as from the podcast as well too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of 22 Fresh though, for those of you at home, they're back again as our major sponsor, and we are really pumped to have them on board because we're huge fans. We all have 22 Fresh gear. Speaking of, I'm currently wearing my 22 Fresh hat. It's one of my favorite hats actually too. Really comfortable stuff, really nice stuff. And we've been talking in our group chat like crazy. Their new fall drop, some of their stuff is unbelievably nice. And I'm really hoping that some of our prizes we get comes from the fall drop, because then I'm going to regret giving up my team, because I really want some of that fall 22 Fresh gear. So you can get your hands on that stuff as well too now. Even though it's brand new gear, brand new fall drop, you can save 15% off on checkout reusing the same promo code we had last year, and that's 306 FFB15. We're the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. You get 15% off. So an easy way to remember it: 306 FFB15. You drop that off checkout, and you'll get your 15% off at the on your purchase. So I guess with that, we'll continue, and we will start our fantasy preview. Week 1 fantasy preview here. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the podcast, we all share like a start of the week. Obviously, we all can't just say, well, I think you should start Jamar Chase, because, well, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So a lot of these names are guys that maybe drafted in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round of some sort. And you're like, okay, well, maybe I can play them, maybe I can't. But we're giving you names that we think have a really good matchup and a chance to hit in a big way. And then we give you some sit decisions, and some of them are really big names. Like, I know, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Zach or if it was you, Armand, or whoever it was, but it was like sit Zeke in the championship matchup 2 years ago, and he got like 3 points. And it was like, at that point, Zeke was like a top 5 draft pick, who was struggling a little bit that season nonetheless, but a huge decision, and it panned off. So we were like, I would say, I don't have the official number, but trying to look back, we were like really good throughout the year, like well above 70% accuracy when looking at our starts and sits. A couple we obviously make mistakes on too, but that's part of the game. But we're trying to help you guys at home be successful in fantasy football, just the same as we are trying to do the same. So, okay, so without further ado, I guess we might as well jump into our week 1. So we will start off with Zach. Zach starts the week. Who is somebody that you think? I mean, obviously it's a little bit easier in week 1 because you drafted them to start them, unless obviously we talked about your Cooper Kupp and your Jonathan Taylors, but you drafted players to start them. But this is one name I think that's really worth throwing out there, because you maybe got him around the 10th round, depending on your drafting format. And he's a guy that you really probably could play week 1 with a lot of confidence. So start this one off, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. Jahan Dotson is somebody that I would strongly consider starting on most teams, I think. Taking into consideration, of course, at least to start the season, we don't have, or we might not have Terry McLaurin. So Dotson may be Washington's number one receiver. And you likely didn't draft Dotson with, starting him right off the hop in mind. Like you did mention, he was, player 85 off the board according to Fantasy Pros. So we're looking at, 7th round, 8th round draft capital. Maybe a flex play, but more likely than not, like a really good bench player on a lot of rosters. But he's somebody that if you did draft Cooper Kupp, I feel really confident throwing Dotson in. If you did draft, say, like a Jerry Jeudy, feel really confident flipping him in instead, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen there with Jeudy. So he's somebody that I would be strongly consider starting in a lot of formats.
Especially if Terry doesn't play, this is a lock. Like, if Terry plays, then I guess you have a discussion. But if Terry McLaurin doesn't play, this is a lock and a game that Washington should smoke Arizona. So I like that one quite a bit. I'll go next year just because I'm in the same game. I took Washington's defense, their DST against Arizona. I really wanted to homer pick this one and go Jared Goff against KC, just because I think that game's going to be a shootout. And Goff was really good last year. If you're streaming a quarterback or you got quarterback late that then you don't really like the matchup or what have you, I think Jared Goff is a really good start. But the Washington DST currently right now, I know obviously we had high hopes for them last year and they were a little bit of a disappointment, but they are healthy this year and they're ranked number 3 defense on the week right now. And they're projected to get 13 points, which, I mean, you're talking defensive points. I mean, what is that, right? You start with 10 points and you finish with 3 extra. I guess that's pretty good for a defense. But fun fact, this one, I was just looking at some of our drafts there, and like I didn't draft a defense in your league, Armand, because I had guys I was going to put on the IR and then pick up a defense after. And Washington wasn't drafted in that league, which I was incredibly surprised by just because of their week 1 matchup. I already talked about how they're starting a rookie quarterback in his very first matchup. They have James Conner and pretty much end of list. So if Washington's defense is even a half of what we thought they were going to be last year, I think they're absolutely going to eat this rookie quarterback up. I think they're going to get a ton of sacks. I'm going to guess at least 1 interception, and there's a high likelihood of a pick 6 in that matchup. Arizona is a dumpster fire. They've already started the fire sale, and they want the 101 pick. So I think they're going to be on to a nice slow start on the 101 march by getting dusted by Washington's defense. So I'm going to put Washington DST as my start of the week in the same game Zach has already mentioned. Armin, who you got as your start of the week?
Okay, so mine's kind of a reaction to the Travis Kelce news. So there's a little bit of ifs and thens here. But I've already seen in a bunch of leagues I'm in Blake Bell being claimed off the waiver wire. And I don't think that's the answer. I know Kelce's production is a little bit of the games plan and play calling of KC, but Blake Bell is not going to get the same production that Kelce does. He's not going to get all of Kelce's targets. I think this is the time to start a KC wide receiver. And I know there's a hesitation with Kadarius Toney to start him, but I think he has the highest upside of all the KC wide receivers. And knowing what he did this offseason for his meniscus tear, a meniscus heals fairly fast, and there's not a lot of residual once you're back to full go. It's not like a hammy or a soft tissue muscle damage, right? It's pretty well full go once you're back. You just have higher risk of arthritis once you're older. Sky Moore is the other one that I wanted to say, that if Toney is not in, I predict those targets going to Sky Moore in the passing game. So Toney healthy, take him, start him this week with confidence if Kelce's out, and then Sky Moore, if Toney and Kelce are both out, start him.
That's a quick turnaround too. Like week 1, we're talking about a day away from here. it's a high risk, high reward right from day one. Imagine if you pick the wrong one, Armand, you start your week with like 1 point going into your very first fantasy matchup. But it's one of those ones that Kansas City always finds a way. So high risk, high reward here.
Yeah, gotta find the spicy take here, and this is spicy.
Zach, let's start our sits off here. This one, I just got to beat you to the docket more often, I think, because a lot of times we're on the same radar here. So let's hear your sit of the week.
I don't know how you don't beat me to the docket, considering you're the one that makes it. And
I let you guys, I don't want to just cheat you out of it. I give everybody a chance, and then I just do that every time. And I always say, oh, should I just put my names in there? But okay, anyhow.
Yeah, so this one for me, I think, is probably something that a lot of people might be considering. And that's sitting Breece Hall. Breece Hall was somebody that I would assume most drafts went in the second or third round. I would, assume. Let's see here. Fantasy Pros. Oh, they have them both the third round. So yeah, somebody that you drafted with the intention to start. Somebody that last year when he was on the field played quite well. But right now, coming back from that injury, I don't think I'd be in any hurry to start him until I've seen him on the field for a little bit and producing. If you have another option, either at the running back position or the flex, certainly look to put Breece Hall on the bench. And maybe if you have a running back in the flex, you can put that running back to start. And then if you have Jahan Dotson, bingo, bango, bongo, 2 for 1.
There you go. It's doubling down on your own take. I like it. My sit here, this one kind of sucks because I have high hopes for this player. I think we're going to get a lot of clarity after week 2 or week 3 of this running back situation. But the person I want to sit is Devon Achane. One, he's a rookie, and we don't know exactly who's going to take over in that backfield, and he's coming off his own injury. Even though the other two are battling their own injuries right now as well, I think Jeff Wilson might not even start this week just because he is hurt. Meaning, if that's the case, it might be Raheem Mostert's backfield. But Devon Achane, he seems like he fits this offense really well. High tempo, high pace, fast, outside the tackles, which is kind of like his MO, and the only really way I find that he's going to be successful in the NFL. But he might fit the bill and be really, really good. Now, that being said, the week 1 matchup is against the Chargers, who has a really good defensive line and a pretty good linebacker core. Decent defense all around, I'd say. And you have Achane coming off a shoulder injury. So is he going to get the full load? Pretty unlikely. Is he even going to touch the ball a ton in his first start? I also think kind of unlikely, but also a guy that people are drafting, like I said, around that 7th, 8th round, where you're really considering possibly starting him. So I think you're at a wait and hold situation with Devon Achane. I think if you start him, you're setting yourself up for a situation where you're going to be less than pleasant. Maybe like a 4 to 5 point range, I think is kind of his ceiling in the situation, because I just don't see them in game 1 of his first career start, given the reins when he's already nicked up. So that's for the most part, I do think he is going to be successful this season. I just don't see it happening in week 1 against the Chargers. Armand, you're the last one of us this week. Who is your sit that you're recommending for week 1 of the NFL season?
All right, so my sit this week is Jordan Addison, the rookie wide receiver from Minnesota. We know that in the past, it usually takes rookie wide receivers a little bit of time to start breaking out in their rookie season. And so if you drafted him, great. He's probably going to be a great wide receiver. But at this point yet, KJ Osborne is still ahead of him in the depth chart in Minnesota and should be seeing more snaps than Addison. So at this point, it's too early to start using Addison in your lineup. So just stash him on your bench and wait for him to break out.
Just remember, even Justin Jefferson, who had an unbelievably electric rookie season had a really slow start. I think it took him not slow start. Like obviously, like for rookies, like he was unbelievable. But I think it took him 3 weeks to get going. His first week I think was terrible. Second week was not very great. Third week was a bit of a dabble, and then I think it was his fourth week was just explosive. So even the best to do it have slow starts. So put that in the back of your mind. They're playing the Buccaneers, so I think they will handily beat. But who knows where that's going to come from? I think that means Justin Jefferson is going to put up 2 and 110 or something ridiculous like that. So
well, and you got to remember too, they have Hawkinson, who since he's moved over to Minnesota, they love to target as well, right? So he might even be the 4th target for Kirk Cousins starting the season, right? You just got to wait for Cousins to start to trust him, which clearly he only trusts Jefferson and then Hawkinson in the red zone. So,
and if there's one thing we know about you and Kirk Cousins, he's on your Mount Rushmore. So I mean that's all that matters. So
my Mount Crushmore or whatever. Actually, I wanted to respond to that. I listened to you guys last week, and you know what? As it kind of funny. When I'm thinking Mount Rushmore, I'm thinking guys who have like pop culture references that you can go to and highlight moments and yet still be very fantasy relevant and NFL relevant. So I do have a Seattle running back in my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
But it's beast mode Marshawn.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mr. Skittles.
Yeah. And then I would say Adrian Pearson. And then he's only going into year 4 here, but Justin Jefferson would be on my Mount Rushmore. And then the 4th guy, I'm not too sure who my 4th guy would be. Maybe
Rashad Penny.
What?
Rashad Penny.
No, let's go Patty Mahomes. He can be on there.
Ooh, dark horse. Wouldn't expected that one. So we usually would have one, and he usually does it live, just with it's been a busy startup here, and you know, with us getting the podcast rolling and everything. So week 1, Wellesley's Wagers, like I said, parlay of the week. That one's going to be on social media, so check that one out as we get the first week rolling here too. So the next couple weeks here, we'll hopefully get him on live on the podcast as well too. But before we wrap this one up, fellas, anything you guys want to add in here? I know we could sit here and talk fantasy or NFL all week, but I'm pumped. Okay, so first of all, we have to get this going. I'm gonna throw on the pod, but we do our DFS in the playoffs. I'm like low-key super excited about this DFS league we're trying out. We talked about possibly doing it as like our charity league. We threw that out there to you guys on the social medias, and we got a decent response, but we thought maybe it might be 1 year too soon, so we're gonna try and do some bugs out on that and see what happens. But this DFS league, I'm like low-key excited for that one. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise. I was actually going to talk to you about that after the fact. That's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. And man, I just want NFL football to start, man. I've been ready since freaking August.
I'm pumped for Thursday, and I might use an extra cur day on Friday if the Lions win here, boys. Like, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Might not be going to work on Friday because I'm gonna be so excited and just be pumped all weekend. Start my weekend early with the Lions winning. I'll tell you that much. But it's a good time of year, you guys. I know it takes a lot of time to get to the fantasy season, get the NFL going. Whether you're a fantasy fan or just an NFL fan, this is a good time of year. It obviously starts this Thursday, and then our first slate is on Sunday. It's a good time because the weather's still nice. You can still kind of go and do things. You can, like, I love watching the games out on the deck if possible. Have some coffee on the deck and watch the games on the computer. Like, it's just a good time of year. So hopefully you guys are all pumped up for fantasy football season. Hopefully you're pumped up for week 1 NFL. We're excited. It's going to be a good time. So tune in and watch some fantasy football. We'll have some good social media stuff coming out as week 1 starts, as we progress into week 2, et cetera, et cetera. So on behalf of Armand, Zach, and myself, and obviously Lucas as well, who will be on the podcast soon. Thank you very much for listening to episode 94. Take care, and we'll talk soon.